Looks like it. Here we got it. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Investor Frame podcast. I'm your host, Paul Sparks. And on this show, we ask successful real estate investors and entrepreneurs to share their stories so we can learn from their experiences and get closer to the things that we want in life. Today, I have Ryan Haywood with us. Ryan and I met through the Collective Genius. Ryan is out of St. Joseph's, Missouri. He and his wife run a pretty high volume wholesale BRRRR rental type investment portfolio there, and they have kind of come to dominate that market. He's got so many things that they've done with, working with the city officials. I've heard Ryan speak many times at Collective Genius, and he's always vying for the belt. If he doesn't win it, he's second place usually. So I'm extremely happy to have him on here to talk how he's using real estate and transforming his city and help him get closer to the things that he wants in life. So welcome in, Ryan. It's great to have you.
Hey, thank you very much for inviting me. And I to elaborate on the belt, if I'm not first, then I go into a seasonal depression. And in that seasonal depression, I focus on trying to get that belt back. But second place is fine too. It tells me that it was at least somebody got something out of it. So,
well, I learned something from you. If nothing about real estate, it's about showmanship. Because every time you get up there, it's always like, all right, everybody get up, stand up, and you do some sort of thing. There's always like a magic trick involved. So you definitely know how to work a crowd.
Well, I'll say this, like sitting in presentations is a challenge for everyone. And if it's not a challenge, then you are a special individual. And for me, it's like, I hate it, absolutely hate it when people do everybody stand up. I hate that. I'm like, well, that's what I need to lean into the thing that makes me the most uncomfortable, because just as uncomfortable it is for the people that I'm asking to participate, it's uncomfortable for me to ask, because I'm like, I would absolutely hate this. So,
well, it works, man. It works. So, we start off every show with a 6-word update. So what is your 6-word update today?
Yeah. So the 6th word, I need to really kind of start with the 6th word first, and that's growth. And then I'll go back to the first word. It's insane. 2nd word, rapid. 3rd word is uneasy. 4th is spontaneous. 5th is fun. And then back to growth. So all these things, our growth journey currently right now, it's insane. It's fast. It's rapid. Uneasy at times. Spontaneous, because it feels like there's so many different things that are coming in that we weren't prepared for, or just absolutely new things that we have to overcome. It's still fun because of the journey of going from where we were in a 9-to-5 job to being our own boss and making more money than we've ever made, wasting as much time as we did working in the 9-to-5 environment. It's all part of the growth journey. And like, you can't have a lot of the freedoms that you have as an entrepreneur without going through a lot of these things. This you'd have to call it insane for some people to even go through it, or to even have the courage to say, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave my 9-to-5 warm blanket, and I'm going to go and create a business that I knew nothing about. That is not a normal person's version of sanity. Does not include doing that. Like, people are like, that you're crazy for doing that. But yeah, then like the journey, what we had expected to happen was not what happened. We were like running the numbers after our first wholesale deal, and it's like, okay, all I need to do is get like 3 deals a month and we're good. We can pay all of our bills. We can do this. And even then I was thinking the assignment fees would be about $2,000. So we just need to get 6,000 every month in wholesale and we'll be set. And that evolved like really quickly, because we went from doing 2 deals in the first month to we ended the first year that we were doing this with 73 transactions and averaging about $3,000 to $5,000 per deal. So what we expected to happen and what happened really quickly. And then there's, every journey of growth, there's going to be things that just make you feel uneasy. Learning how to depend on other people is one of those things. It's like you've created it's kind of like your baby in terms of something that you made from scratch. The last thing you want to do is entrust someone else to come in and run that makes you feel uncomfortable, because you don't exactly know, like, how involved do I get or how uninvolved do I get? How much detachment should I set with this? And the whole intention was to have passive income that we could go and enjoy our time as a family and do all these things. So the end result is I don't want to be in the day-to-day of doing, I don't want to create another job of doing 73 deals every year to survive. But I can create a team, and that you have to be uncomfortable to create a team. And then the spontaneity, like Collective Genius has been one of those things that has given us not I guess it's organized spontaneity, because it's like we did not expect to be in a position where we needed to be providing some construction crews to our wholesale deals in order for our growth to continue. In our experience, we put ourselves in a position where we assigned so many houses that our buyers like, look, until we can get these fixed, we can't buy anymore. And it's like, shoot, like, all right, we're going to create a construction company. That was totally spontaneous growth through a conversation at Collective Genius that was like, oh, this is a good idea, but was not something that we expected to do. But yeah, we have a ton of fun doing this, and it's different. It's way different than what we expected it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, yes, real estate is one of those things where you get in and you realize, well, this is a job, right? To do 73 deals a year, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And so the natural progression for a lot of us is then, okay, so let's start building out teams. Let's start building out little ancillary businesses like construction businesses that can, do this. And then, of course, the more things you add, right, it becomes uneasy a lot of times, right? And challenging is another way of saying that, right? There's all sorts of things you didn't expect when you're trying to grow these businesses in this really like ecosystem to be able to, get the off market stuff, the construction stuff, maybe you do on market and, retail type things. And yeah, what a growth. And I mean, you guys have grown so quickly. Tell us a little bit about, the specifics of Heritage Home Investments. You said you did 73 transactions in your first year. Was that while you were at your W-2 job still, or did you quit and go full time at that point?
No, in fact, like to back up and give everybody a full vantage point of what happened. Megan was pregnant with our third child at the time. Everything in the W-2 world, I was a sales and marketing manager for a fiber optic internet company, and everything was great there. It was like that job that I'm like, this is my retirement job. I'm going to stay here for 20, 30 years, retire, sail off into the sunset. Everything changed. They brought in a new CEO who had different views, and everything about what made that comfortable started to shift. And they started to like nickel down onto, and I don't even know why, but they had this fascination with the sales department, which we were breaking all the sales records, like doing all the sales goals were being broken. Our team was getting contracts left and right. Personally, I was commission based, so it was my goal to make more than the CEO, and that was not okay with the CEO. And so it was like, well, we're going to change your pay schedule. You're going to get this much less money. And it's like, I don't know how I like that. Yeah. But what am I going to do? Like, I can't do anything about it. I have to just roll with it. And then you have to go home and say, okay, they're changing my money to this. And it's like, okay, that happened 3 times. And the third time was like the final straw. And it was like, I can't continue to work this hard to be told you're going to make this less money. So Megan had pointed out it was like a 30-day wholesaling challenge that she had found on Instagram. And she had been pushing, you should do this, you should do this. And at first I'm like, I don't have any idea what wholesaling is. Just because somebody else had success in it doesn't mean it's made for me. But she just has that, she knows when something is going to work for me. She can see it usually before I can. And so I agreed. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And 14 days into the deal, or into the 30-day challenge, we got our first property under contract, and found a buyer for it. So I'm like, well, that was pretty easy. That gave us the ability. When Abel was born, and it was like, I don't need to go back to that place. Like, I can't spend time at home as a dad with 3 kids and work an 80-hour, W-2 job that continues to take money away from me for being successful. And just the distractions and the weight that comes along with that. So that one deal gave us confidence to move forward. So I would say not exactly the greatest time to have a wife that just gave birth and then be like, yeah, let's leave our job. All the comforts that came with a W-2, at least it was consistent pay, but like insurance and retirement, if you want to call it that, all those things that are intended to make you feel comfortable, you're losing those things, so you feel uncomfortable. But then like you go into survival mode, which is what we did, and then survival mode, that's what led to doing 73 transactions in that first year. So that journey of leaving the W-2 job is what really kind of lit the fire to go out and hustle and try to get ourselves in a financial position to make what we needed to make. But in all of that, we started buying our own rental properties because wholesaling was creating a ton of cash. And I knew, I'm like, I don't want to just keep the cash. I'd rather buy things that are going to continue to make me money. I like to explain it as cash is like your little green army men that you're sending out there to go and bring you more money. So yeah, it was like deploying the cash on buying cash flowing assets that would, create consistent cash flow. So all that happened in year one. I think I worked more than I would have worked in a W-2, but now it's put us in a position where we're far more comfortable. We get to do things more as a family. Generally, we take the kids with us to Collective Genius, but we've also realized, we could go and actually like sit on the beach alone while we're at this conference. So last time we just left them all at home.
That's awesome. Well, and you guys have 36 stores now, you were telling me. And we talk a lot about the solvable problem on this show, and the idea that, you left your W-2 job for a reason, and I can relate very deeply with being in a sales position. I did that for years and years and years. And it'd be great. You'd make a lot of money, but then the boss would be like, well, we're going to raise your quota.
Right.
Or well, we're just going to move the bar, and now you got a higher bar to jump over every single year. Yeah. And it's like, well, I'm not really getting the traction that, it doesn't like build on itself. There's not a lot of, snowball effect there, because they're just going to chop the snowball in half and be like, here you go, start again. Right. And now you have a higher goal, which sucks. And so you got into entrepreneurship as a way to create what everybody talks about, the coveted financial freedom, right? This idea that, we listen to Bigger Pockets. We listen to all these podcasts. We listen to all these people talking about, hey, if you just collect enough doors, you can create enough cash flow that can support your lifestyle. And a lot of us, I still buy into that, right? I still think it's a totally valid way to build your life. And you guys are on the way of doing that. And so I'm curious to know, with the impact that you have on your community, was like 200 vacant structures in a really small town of St. Joseph's, Missouri. That's a lot of property in one small town, right? And I know that you guys, when I saw your presentation a month or so ago, I saw this incredible video of the impact you're making on your community. And so I'm curious how all of that fits: the rental properties, the business, the impact on your community, obviously this growing family that you've got. I think it's like 4 young kids now.
3, that's enough.
Three is enough. All right. So how does all of that play in with your personal or your family's solvable problem?
So the intent was to create a business that's going to give us the income that we need to live comfortably and on our own terms. That was the intent. That was what you could say was our solvable problem. Find a way to make income that would allow us to live the life we want to live, not under the thumb of someone else whose interests are completely different than what yours are. But in doing this put us in a position where we were going into neighborhoods looking for vacant properties that really we kind of neglected, in terms of we just never went over there and we never realized how exactly bad St. Joe was getting. And so in this process, it's like, oh, you know what? Like, we could do something really good here and focus our attention on fixing some of these houses more permanently. And when we first started wholesaling, it was literally getting the property and assigning it a lot of times to somebody who we had no idea who it was going to be. We didn't have relationships with buyers. It was put it on the marketplace, sell it, get our cash, celebrate it, and then go on and do another one. But what we started to see was that some of these properties were not getting fixed. It was like we're just changing hands. It was taking it from a bad owner and giving it to another bad owner. And I'm like, that is not, like, I don't want this town to be like that, where there's just hundreds and hundreds of vacant structures laying around all over the place. So what we started to do is we shifted our business model a little bit to say, okay, let's find investors that are willing to fix the properties up to what we would say is our standard. And we'd done a few of them on our own and made really nice rental properties out of them, things that we could sit there and say, I would be okay living in this house.
Yeah.
And so that was our goal. That was our finding a way to get investors to do it the way we wanted to do it, and then continue to work with those investors. And that essentially led to changing. And here's a fun fact. The news press, our local newspaper, put out a article last year, it was early in the first quarter, that like they had seen a significant amount of real estate property taxes that had been more than ever in the past 10 years paid last year. And I'm like, I hate to say, like, hey, that was us, but 200 properties that were probably not getting their taxes paid were paid. And I would like to say that that's most likely because of us bringing in investors who were fixing them up and paying their taxes. That brought more income into the city, because you literally can't do anything in the city unless your people are paying taxes. So like that was the moment where we're like, oh man, we're actually leaving a pretty large footprint here, and then just keeping it going, keep doing what we're doing. So that, yeah, essentially what was our solvable problem was creating income to give us what we wanted to have in terms of life. But what we've been able to do is really kind of shift the growth in St. Joe, and you're changing the landscape. Like you go around in St. Joe and yeah, you still see vacant houses, but not nearly as many as there were. Mm-hmm. So we're definitely making some change.
Yeah, it seems like it. You'd shared something, you and Megan had shared something about, and it prompted quite a bit of discussion at our last event around, you threw out some number. I think it was like $3 million or something like that. And I don't know if that's revenue or what that is. And I don't think that really matters. The point is like, here's some target, right? And what we were talking about before we hit record on that show was how oftentimes we set these goals based on, well, it's double what I did last year, or it's some, arbitrary just like point in space that we've picked, and we're like trying to drive at this because we're high achievers in a lot of cases, right? We want to have something higher to reach for.
Yep.
But I found it interesting that since the last time we spoke, that has sort of, you've got to reframe around that now. And the idea of what I'm hearing you telling me is like, you're trying to get to a point in your life where you have enough income coming in that you're comfortable. Your family does not, we call that financial certainty, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's this moat built around the fortress of your, family's finances that like, it's an impenetrable fortress.
Yeah.
Okay. So what that allows us to do is free up our time to go out and do whatever it is. I like to say all the time that I would like to get to a point where I've got this moat so that I can go play business the same way I play sports, same way I play pickup basketball. I just like to play, I like to play. What I like about what you guys are doing so much is like you're as a byproduct of your business, you're making a big impact, and you're starting to realize, like, after doing the reps for so many years and the intensity of that process getting higher and higher, you're now starting to see a larger purpose that you have inside of your community. So talk to me a little bit about, one, the arbitrary point that a lot of us entrepreneurs say, like, I want to hit X amount in revenue, without really defining, well, what does that do for you? How does that change your life? Like, why do we do that as entrepreneurs? What's your opinion on that?
Like we set that goal of 3 million. And when we set that, it was like, well, we hit the 1 million mark really easy. And so let's just go bigger. Let's set it for 3 million. And we presented that like, this is our goal. We want to know how to get here doing what we're doing. But what really, like, as soon as we had said it, it was kind of like that. Yeah. Why? Like, why do we need to go for 3 million? Because it wasn't really like a necessity. That 3 million wouldn't have done, that wasn't a magic number of any sort. It was literally just like you'd said, kind of picking it out of thin air in a sense, like seeing what we had done in the business before. I think we did like 1.3 last year, which was like pat on the back. Wow, we did it. Let's try to double it. Let's try to get 3 million. But why? Like, what am I going to accomplish hitting 3 million? No idea. Why not? And so we started having those conversations of, why not like just get really good at this so that we're always winning? And I'm like, that definitely is the way that I'd rather put myself in a position where I'm betting against the fact that I've got such a good business model and that I'm operating at such a high level that I'm undefeated. I'm winning every month.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like our takeaway, is like, let's not focus on this stupid $3 million mark. And honestly, like, we'll probably hit that. Like,
it's so funny how that works.
And not
right?
even thinking it. If like we just quit thinking about that, go out and like win every single opportunity we can win. And then at some point you're going to look back and be like, oh, we hit 3 million and we weren't even thinking about it. Weren't even trying for that. But I'm very much the same way. Like, you say you want to go out and play business. I'm way too competitive. Like, my competitiveness in most cases, it becomes too stressful. I'm too competitive about winning the CG belt that I put way too much pressure on myself to go out and give the best presentation to win. And even that was a good moment of like, okay, forget about the belt. Don't worry about the belt. Just go out and make sure that when I leave, somebody walks away and says, that helped me.
Yeah.
And I have to like that. I can't give anything less than that. But that's how I view going and working on our business every single day. Is I'm here to win. I don't want to come home and be like, that day beat me. I want to go and say I beat that day. And then I want to be able to relax and have good times with my family. And so that's, I completely relate with the idea of setting the moat around you to enable you to basically go out and do business for fun, because the thrill of the sale, that always gets me. Like, I loved selling. I used to work at Foot Locker when I was in the college age. And I loved, like, they had this, it was really kind of stupid. I don't even know why they did it, but they had a thing where it was like, you need to sell insoles, socks, and shoe cleaner. I have no idea why. There must have been some benefit for them. Maybe it was the sock company, but they were all Foot Locker socks. So it was like, they were ugly and cheap, but whatever. But I made that like such a big game in my head of like, I'm going to sell every sale, every transaction that I get, I'm going to have either an insole, a sock, shoe cleaner, something. I'm going to get it. And what that led, like that playing that game in my head, I ended up being like the number one salesman in all of the region, which was Nebraska, Kansas, Iowa, Missouri. I ended up being the number one salesman, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to move you to a store manager." And then I'm like, "Cool." And then there was no game to play anymore, and I hated it. I'm like, "This sucks." Like, I wanted to just participate in winning, and I did. And I ended up putting myself in a position where I wasn't able to play the game anymore.
Yeah.
That's like the thing I want to avoid. And that's why when we were going at that 3 million, I'm like, it's totally possible that trying to strive for something like that is going to distract me from doing what I enjoy doing. And that's just going out and winning. And so, like, going back to, okay, just go out and like, just dominate, completely, utterly dominate your market. Do what you're doing and do it really well. And then the benefits of your effort are going to be shown. And so that's essentially that's a super long story of like what we went through after our presentation. But that was like that moment of like, yeah, that seems like a nonsense thing to think about, when the reality is I want to have fun doing what I'm doing, and I was having fun doing what I was doing. So let's just set ourselves up to win every day. Simple enough.
Well, and one of the things that I took out of kind of observing you going through that experience is that, and I should say this is by far my biggest, I call it a bias, right? I have a bias towards wanting to raise the ceiling. How do we go higher? How do we go bigger?
Yeah.
And what I found is it's actually much quicker to raise the ceiling if you focus on raising the floor. Right? How do we do? You get to the ceiling a lot quicker by, instead of trying to jump higher, it's like, well, how do we raise the floor up? You know? And another way of saying that is when we think about the barbell, it's instead of trying to turn a reliable business into an upside play, the question really that I ask myself is like, how do I make this business even more reliable and consistent? And because it presents more optionality for upside plays when you have a reliable business. When you have a business that sometimes you do 5 deals a month, sometimes you do 2, sometimes you do 8. Sometimes you spend 40 hours a week, sometimes you spend 20, sometimes you spend 60. That's a really tough business to walk away from.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what to expect week over week. Right. So I would the way that I'm now approaching business is not by saying, well, how do I go from 1.3 to 3 million? It's like, how do I make the 1.3 more profitable? Because inevitably what that does is it typically increases the amount of revenue that you make.
Yes.
It's just kind of like inverting the way that our brains want to, like our lizard brains, you know, that they're constantly chasing more, like, ooh, how do I get more money? And it takes us, you know, competitive type A type people to rewire that and flip that around. Instead of doing more, how do you get better at what you're already doing? Make this more reliable. It increases the upside tremendously. But again, it's not what our brains are telling us.
Right. Yeah. It's really, it's a strange, I don't even know how to explain like why we're like that. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, it's my competitive nature. I see somebody else doing something and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. I see guys like,
it's survival based, right? Wouldn't you
yeah.
agree? I mean, in order for humans to survive as long as we had to have that side of our brain. Like, you don't always know when your next meal is coming. You know, we had to be wired towards getting more as much as we possibly can. You know, but I like to say, look, we're not getting chased by saber-toothed tigers and woolly mammoths anymore. You know, that chasing more doesn't really serve us that well in business any longer.
One, like, what's the purpose when you need like one deer to feed you for a month? Why do you need to go out and kill 10?
Right.
Like, what the reality is, get the one that you need, and like maybe get ready for, like, maybe know when that time is right for the next one, so that you're not in a position where, well, we've got 10 pounds of meat left that's going to last us 2 days, we better get back out there. No, building like some consistency on, we're going to start the hunt 2 weeks before we are going to need this, so that we're ready for it. Like, building that consistency. And that's like kind of, and how that relates to our business is, it is kind of sales based, which means it's going to have its ups and downs. There's some months where we do 5 deals, there's some months where we do 10, there's some months where we do 2. And like, how do we get that to be more consistent? There's some things we can control. You know, for us, we can control our marketing, we can control our effort. So that's the things that I talk about the most, is our marketing and our effort. If our marketing slows down, then we're not preparing ourselves for that next month. If our effort slows down, then we again are not preparing ourselves for that next month. So what's going to happen when that month gets here? It's going to be down here, and then we're like, crap, now we got to hurry. You know, now I have to go and kill, instead of like being prepared months ahead and having some consistency in the way that we're doing everything. And that's, again, going back to our presentation at CG. It's like, okay, why, instead of trying to focus on hitting 3 million, why don't we just sharpen this so that it's more consistent, so that we're not playing the game of high month, low month? You know, we can play the game of projection instead of, you know, budget. Like, let's project what we're going to do, and setting the projection as, this is what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And it's a mindset shift for sure. Like, getting away from the idea that you have to go out and, like I said, kill 10 when you only need 1, but it's a matter of planning and knowing what your play is, and knowing that you're being consistent in your actions, which is going to lead to a consistent business, instead of it just being up and down all the time.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the barbell then, right? And you've got 36 rentals. I would imagine that's contributing to the reliable side of your barbell.
Yep.
It makes it easy to predict. We have X amount of money coming in every single month. We can predict that with a 95% confidence level.
Yep.
You know, I don't know anything more reliable than rentals. Like, that's why a lot of us got into real estate, is because we were just so attracted to that. Now, not everybody's using the barbell framework to describe that, but I think everybody understands that. Ooh, my human brain says, if I can make, you know, $100 a door, then all I need is X number of doors to support my lifestyle. There you go. Yes. Pretty simple.
Yep.
You know, and then a lot of us, we get into wholesaling, which is not a passive income source.
No.
Right. And we're saying like, well, I want to use this to get more passive income. So the idea is like, I'm going to work here, I'm going to do all this active stuff, and then I'm going to shift it over to the reliable side by getting more rentals and things like this. And then, as we know, we get very distracted, but we're like, ooh, we're super competitive. And we're like, ooh, yeah, but I'm going to build this incredible wholesaling business that does all this volume. And then, of course, insane, rapid, uneasy, spontaneous, fun growth.
Yep.
Right. That's what happens with that process. Now,
Right.
it's not like saying that's not a viable way to build to build active income that you can use to get more reliable income. However, we do want to take that business and try to shift it out of the middle of the bar and over to the reliable side so that we can predict based on the inputs and the processes that we have in place, we can reliably predict the outputs. It's the same thing as a rental.
Yep.
How do you view the process of, where you're at in your business? I mean, we've talked a lot about it so far, about making that business reliable so that you can predict. And then what does the other side of your barbell look like? What are you doing to create upside opportunities where it doesn't necessarily need to go right, but if it goes right, boy, that's going to really accelerate your process to hitting your solvable problem. What does that look like for you?
So one thing that we've been in the process of adjusting in the last month was like the focus of trying to gain a big buyer's list so that we could sell more deals. When the reality was we've got a tool in the rehab that essentially we can double what we were doing by providing the rehab on the wholesale deal. So if we assign 5 deals, then we have the contracts to fix those 5 deals. One thing that you kind of, before you can get to that point, you need to know, okay, these 5 investors that we're working for, what's their goal? Their goal is to get 10 properties a year. Okay. So we get one for them, we get it fixed, we get another one, we get it fixed. And as long as we're keeping tabs on, hey, making sure your goals are still here. If we're buying and getting them fixed, are you prepared and ready to continue that on? As long as we know their intent, like I know that I can do 5 deals a month as long as I'm assigning a property and fixing it, so that I've taken what was really kind of inconsistent of let's go and get 5 deals. Doesn't matter where they come from. We can fix them up. But instead of doing that, let's align what we're doing with the goals of these investors that we're working for. Take a small chunk. Like if we can only manage 5 deals a month in terms of rehab, then let's only do 5 transactions a month to investors that need our service. You can still wholesale to other people, but get those buyers to where that is our consistent flow. We're assigning 5 deals every month and fixing 5 houses every month, period. Now, then you have where do those deals come from? Well, then you have to make sure your marketing can support that. So like changing, instead of just trying to get as many deals as you can, let's be intentional about, we know that we can get 5. As long as we have 5 deals, we know we can get 5 here and get them fixed, and then they're ready to do another 5. So that has kind of like been the shift on like how to gain more consistent growth out of the wholesale instead of it being so spontaneous. And then obviously the other side of the barbell is our rental properties. We are trying to grow that portfolio beyond at least 50 before the end of this year. Again, that was something we had said like, 100, but why do you need 100 properties? Like that isn't 100 properties did not align with any of our actual goals. It was just a fancy, shiny object number. But what 50 does for us is 50, like we could just literally have a no month where we did nothing, but we have all of the income that we need to keep our business open and running. Like we can pay for marketing, we can pay ourselves, we can pay for rehabs out of the cash flow that we're getting, which enables us to just kind of in-house keep business going. So that like addressing both sides, trying to make both sides more consistent, and one that's already consistent, but bringing the level of what it's bringing in up.
I love that, because we call what you're describing there, we call that a business treasury. The idea that, imagine if you had when you look at Fortune 500 companies and some of the largest companies in the world, they operate, right? Microsoft sells computers and they sell all sorts of stuff. They have an operating side of their business, but they also have what they call a treasury, and they have hundreds of billions of investable assets. They don't just take that money and stick it in Chase Bank, right? They're using it to create a return across different investment vehicles, ideally to offset the operating costs of their business.
Yep.
I mean, you can do the same thing with real estate. You've got a $10,000 a month overhead, and then you got $10,000 a month coming in from your cash flowing rental properties.
Yep.
Well, that means your business operates at about net zero. So if you don't do any deals, you're still okay. Talk about reliability.
Yes.
And that is, in my opinion, the best way to structure and build a business, is that you've got redundancy. You've got a backup plan. You've got this business treasury that can support your operating expenses, so that when you have a down month, a down year, a down quarter, whatever it may be, well, we have built the business in a way that we can weather these storms, and we're not playing off the high watermark of every single month. Right? You know, it's like that business owner who makes 6 figures every year, and then all of a sudden they have a 6-figure month. And the first thing they do is they're like, I'm a 7-figure business owner now.
Right. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And now they have this identity, and they adjust everything to meet that identity. And that's classic raising the ceiling stuff. Right. And what you're doing with your business by building in this redundancy, by focusing, I could really describe your barbell as like reliability and growth, right? Upside, growing your current business does present a ton of upside for you. And you take that upside and then you shift it back to the other side to build additional redundancy and reliability in the form of buying more rentals, making your systems and processes more effective, more predictable, so that when we have down months or down quarters, well, who cares? We've already got all this backup built into the business. And it's not necessarily focused on how do we grow without considering how do we make sure that we stay in business for the next 20, 30 years and build a bulletproof, we called it a moat on this show, this moat, right, around your business. Like, you're not getting in. You're not going to get in and contaminate this. So yeah, I think it's awesome, man.
No, I love, like, one of the things that we've heard so many times. First and foremost, like, when we first started this, like, the financial freedom aspect, getting ourselves in a position, like, we went through Dave Ramsey right before we started this journey. So that gave us in a sense, an advantage, because it was like we didn't have debts. Like, what we were making was what we needed to pay the bills, and that was it. And shifting to the business, like, finding out, and this is something last week, I don't know if you're on the call, but the financial call that we talked about, I can't remember the name of the book. Why can't I?
Profit First. Is that
Profit First? Yeah. So, like, finding out what is the number that we need to support the lifestyle we want. Apply that number to what you need your business to make every single month to break even.
Yeah.
And go and do that. And it's like, that's like, and then it's funny because I'll ask Meg, I'm like, hey, what do we need per month to pay all of our bills? And the first thing that Megan started shifting to is like, well, we need, if I cut back here, I'm like, no. We're not talking about like cutting back, like, to support our lifestyle the way that we want it. What does that need to look like? And then apply that to the money that we need to make in the business. And then we have a purpose to support. Why are we doing wholesale the way that we're doing it? How much income do we need on the rental properties to get to this number? It gave us clarity. It gave us purpose to find, like, what's the point of all this stuff? Like, what's the point in having a wholesale business? What's the point in this? And all of that, and kind of tying it all back into one spot. Then you can build the business around that. And you're gonna, if you're out there hitting the pavement and doing what you need to do to play the game, you're going to win. And it's always going to be better than you expected it. So it's the way the real estate world works.
Well, what I love about David so much is that, we just call that the solvable problem, right? We call that the solvable problem. What's the number that you need in order to live the life that you want?
Yep.
What's the number that your business needs in order to operate in the way that it wants? And picking a number like 3 million is the wrong way to go about it, in my opinion. Right? You're focusing on top line revenue. What we really care about is, well, how do we live the life that we want? Does it really matter if you make 5 million, 3 million, whatever? A lot of times it just comes down to like, stop spending so much money in your business, right? If you just took the money that you're making and cut out a lot of the stuff that's not serving you and reallocated that to your solvable problem, you'd get there a lot faster.
Oh yeah.
And when you have this mechanism of like, here's where I need to get to, now we're solving for how do I get closer to that? Not just this arbitrary, let me just go make more money. Let me double my deal flow. Let me double my revenue. It's a matter of getting closer to the things that you want without chasing more. If you guys want to learn more about how we do that inside of the Whale Club, how we help, as a community, get clear on what are we actually trying to solve here. Well, our partner, Dan, if you're watching this live, wrote this book called Rigging the Game, and he gave us the roadmap on how to do that. We take that and we apply it specifically to real estate so that we can use these tools at our disposal to go get the things that we want to get closer to these things. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to realestatecertainty.com. We got a ton of information about the solvable problem, how to go about creating this, getting clarity on what you're trying to solve for in your life and your business, so that then you can go out and start taking actions that get you closer to those things. Ryan, let's finish the show by leaving the listeners with one of the lessons that you've learned. It could be your greatest lesson learned, could be something that's on your mind recently, but what would you like to leave the listeners with?
It's a lesson that I learned the very first CG meeting we went to, and then I've had to relearn it in the last couple months, and that's grow better and not bigger. Like, get better at what you're doing and quit focusing on trying to be so big. Like, I don't need to be big to be successful. I don't need to be doing 1,000 transactions a year to get where I want to be, and to quit looking at like other people's success and comparing my own success and feeling like I'm a failure if I don't hit what these other people are doing. And that's such a hard thing to sit there, and you can't train people to don't do that. Don't worry about growing bigger, just grow better. But man, if there was one thing that I could say brings you so much more peace, it's not comparing yourself to other people and other businesses. Just focus on making what you're doing the best it can possibly be, and it is going to give you everything that you've ever dreamed of.
Yeah. As we say all the time on this show, play your game, right?
Play your game.
Because comparison is a bias and a trap that a lot of us entrepreneurs find ourselves in. It's one of those things, like, you didn't ask for it, but it's hardwired. You're not going to just not have it. A lot of times it's just that we need to recognize that we are biased towards that and then account for it in the equation, not just try to pretend that it doesn't exist, but by recognizing, hey, this is something that I deal with. This is something that I struggle with. Let's make sure we're accounting for that in the decisions that we make, knowing that that's the case. So I think that's a fantastic lesson. Thank you so much for spending time with me talking about all this stuff. I thought it was a fantastic conversation, learning more about your business, how you and Megan are using these, businesses, rentals, and all these different things to make such an impact on your community, your family. It's really inspiring. For everybody who's listening, we always finish this show by encouraging you to use the investor frame. The title of this show is The Investor Frame, which says, knowing what you know now, and the conversation that Ryan and I just had, what changes do you need to make in your life or business to help you get closer to the things that you want without chasing more and more and more? So, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you today.
Man, thank you very much. It was great. I had fun. Always do.
Awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. We hope that you guys get a lot of value out of this, and we'll see you on the next episode.